Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Cervena Barva Press Reads Around the World reading series. Today, we bring you 3 writers of Turkey. They all are award-winning writers with numerous publications and books. It is an honor to have them share their work with us today. This will be a bilingual reading today in Turkish and English. The English translations will be read by Tokman, Ellen Devlin, and myself. And please forgive any mispronunciation by me tonight. So our first reader is Aslı Erdoğan. She is a writer of literature and columnist, human rights defender, ex-political prisoner, as well as a particle physicist. She is the author of 8 books, novels, novellas, collections of poetic prose and essays, translated into more than 20 languages. She was arrested in 2016 for her collaboration with the pro-Kurdish newspaper. Aslı has received several prizes in literature and human rights, such as the Simone de Beauvoir Award, the Karol Tarkowski Award, the Erich Maria Remarque Peace Prize, the Václav Havel Library Foundation Award, among others. Her work has been adapted into theater and acted in numerous European cities, into classical ballet, radio, a short film, and finally opera. She was nominated for the Lire, famous French literature magazine, as one of the 50 best novelists of the future. And I give you Aslı.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I will read a text from my collection of poetic prose in the silence of life, titled originally, but in French it was published as Requiem for a Lost City, a better choice of title. The book sold more in France, so. This is a short text, a story almost, in Turkish called Çıkış. In English, I guess exit is the closest translation. And excuse me, I'm not a very good reader. My pronunciation is not so good either. Çıkış. Yola çıkmak. Kuzeydeyken esen ilk güçlü rüzgar, açık denizlerin özlemiyle doldurmuştur seni. Yarısı içilmiş sigarayı külleye bastırırsın. Kadehleri boşaltır, bunca yılın artıklarını çöpe atarsın. Alelacele paketlersin anıları, renklilerle beyazları, yaşanmışla yaşanmamışı. Mercan bir kolyenin kırmızısını katarsın çok eski bir gün batımınınkine. Gecenin karasını dantellere sararsın. Fırlatıp atarsın cebindeki fazlalıkları. Can çekişen balıklarla dolu ağları denize dökercesine. Bir anda vazgeçersin seni sen yapandan. Bunca nesneden yalnızlığını çevreleyen. En sonunda gerçek bir savaşa gidercesine cesur bir bakışla vedalaşırsın. Her şeyle ve aynadaki yüzünle. Neden gittiğini bilmezsin. Gidersin yalnızca. Derin bir soluk alır, büyük kocaman görünmez kapıdan dışarı çıkarsın. Ve sanki dünyada seninle birlikte çıkar. Hiçbir şey çağırmamıştır seni. Ne bir ses ne de sessizlik. Dönüp bakarsın sıcak yatağında uyuyan bir bebek gibi arkanda bıraktığın mutsuzluğuna. Bir başlangıçtan diğerine zamanda geriye kayar gider bakışın. Ve sanki o da sana bir daha dönmeyecektir. Ne çok şey öğrenmek, ve unutmak, ne çok şey biriktirmek ve yitirmek zorunda kalmışsındır bu tek adımı atabilmek için. 3, en fazla 4 yaşındayken ayakkabılarını bağlamayı öğrenmişsindir söz gelimi. Bir adımı ötekinin önüne koymayı, beklemeyi, kadın olmayı, ölmeye hazırlanan kediler gibi iz bırakmadan gitmeyi, silinmeyi. Tek bir dalın çiçeklenmesi için nasıl sabırla biriktirirse ağaçlar gün ışığını, yağmur damlalarını, öyle biriktirmişsindir bunca yılı, yaşantıyı, vedayı. Diğerlerinden farkı olmayan bu geceye çıkmak için. Ama hiçbir şey çağırmaz seni, durdurmaz da. Gecenin tekinsiz yollarına koyu kızıllığına açılırsın. Upuzun bir uykudan karanlığa, geciktiğin yazgıya uyanmışsındır. Bakışlarını diktiğin ufuk hayali bir ufuktur. Denizden esen rüzgar bütün gözyaşlarını kurtulacak kadar serttir. Hızla çarpar geçmişin kapılarının ardın sıra. Tek başına yürürsün. Dipdiri, hafiflemiş. Her adımda hızlanarak, döküp saçarak eski senleri, resimleri, kabuk bağlamış yaraları, son ve boş cümleleri. Topukların kaldırımları çınlatır. Fazlaca uzun sessiz gölgen izler seni. Taşın sertliği dizlerini acıtır. İnsanla toprak, toprakla gece arasındaki taş. Orada yokuşun başlangıcında durup soluklanırsın. Erguvan ağaçlarının uykusuz kuzey göğünün altında. Ezbere bildiğin dünya haritasının başında durur gibi. Gecenin soluğuyla dolup sonunda gerçek biçimine kavuşmuş, sana geri verilmiştir dünya. Hüzünle karışık özgürlük renginde. Bütünüyle yabancı, bütünüyle harika, muhteşem. Senin olsun istersin artık adımların. Sırlar edinmek, öykülere girmek, mucizelere tanıklık etmek. Ve yürürsün bomboş odalara açılan uzun koridorlara benzeyen sokaklarda. Kımıldanan yarı karanlık bedenler, belirsiz çağrılar, yabancı gölgeler arasında. Hançerler gibi saplandıkları karanlığı daha da görünür kılan kent ışıklarının altında. İnsana dair bütün öykülerin çarpıp seke seke yalana dönüştüğü taşta. Hedefsiz, amaçsız, sınırsız, dünsüz ve yarınsız. Üzerine tam oturan bir giysi gibidir yalnızlığı. Duvarlar boyunca ilerlersin. Çöplükler, kaldırımlar. Bazen insanlara, bazen aralarındaki boşluğa dikerek gözlerini. Kimi kez söze, kimi kez suskunluğa seslenerek. Artık karanlığa alışmış bakışın bir yaprağı çekip çıkarır çamurların arasından. Yavru bir kediyi kucaklar. Korkuyla kamburlaşmış bir sırtı okşar. Öne eğilmiş bir genç kız yüzünü tutup kaldırır. Gözleri karşısındakinin gözlerini bulsun ya da ufka ulaşsın diye. Sanki bir gardiyan teker teker kilitlemiştir bütün kapıları. Bütün ışıkları söndürmüştür. Ama sen dünyanın kapalı göz kapaklarında bunca yıl dolaşmış, kapılara bağışıklık kazanmışsındır. Ve geri dönersin. Neden yola çıktığını bilmediğin gibi, neden döndüğünde asla bilemeyeceksin. Hiçbir ses çağırmamıştır seni, ne de sessizlik. Durdurmamıştır da. Belki bir büyüteçle bakmışsıncasına olduğu gibi görmüşsündür geceyi. Kabarcıklarla, çatlaklarla dolu, pütür pütür. Senin değildir ki bu gece, hiç olmamıştır. Belki karanlığa dağılıp gitme korkusudur seni azat eden özgürlüğünden. Ya da yoğunlaşıp pıhtılaşmak. Ya da o tuhaf istektir, su yüzeyinde açan çiçekler gibi ansızın beliren. Durmak, orada bomboş sokaklarda ıslak taşlara çöküp kalmak istersin. Omuz omuza oturmuş iki ihtiyarın yanına. Geceyle gündüz kadar farklıdırlar ama kardeş olduklarını sezersin. Biri hırpani kılıklı, iri yapılı, sert bakışlıdır. Yüzü karanlıkta ateş topları gibi parlayan gözleri dışında sakallarla kaplıdır. Sere serpe sakınmasızca neredeyse gururla kaldırma uzattığı tek bacağının yanına bir çift koltuk değneği koymuştur. Diğeri daha ufak tefek, ak saçlıdır. Yeni tıraş olmuş, özenle giyinmiştir. Bir ermişinki kadar duru yüzüne eğmiş, ne üflemektedir. Bakışlarını çalgısından ayırmadan. Tek düze yalın buruk bir ezgidir çaldığı. Yabanıl ama şaşırtıcı derecede insani. Şaşırtıcı derecede öfkesiz. Gecenin ayazında kala kalırsın. Yapayalnız bir çığlığı çizen, boğuk, buğulu neysesine yakalanmış. Bütün sokakları yitirmişsindir. Bütün yolları, kentleri, denizleri. Ne çok yitirmişsindir kısacık hayatında. Yitirmenin ya da sahip olmanın kendisini bile. Çantandaki son parayı eğilerek kutuya bırakırsın. Topal dilenci ondan hiç beklemediğin çocuksu bir neşeyle, içtenlikle teşekkür eder. Diğer ise ara vermez ezgisini. İhtiyar neyzene doğru biraz daha eğilir, kör olduğunu fark edersin. Belki de elden ele geçerek eski çağlardan gelen bu tamamlanmamış ezgidir sana gecenin anlamını öğreten. Aniden saplanan bir sancı kadar şiddetlidir duyduğun özlem. En suskun anında bile diğer sesleri unutturan çağrısı gibi tenin. Giderek hızlanır, parmak uçlarında kayarcasına sessiz adımlarla geri dönersin. Gecenin nemine bulanmış saçlarını okşayacak bir eli özlemişsindir. İçine öflenen soluğu, seni ısıtan, dirilten, kendin yapan soluğu, bakışını yerden kaldırıp ufka tamamlayan bir başka bakışı özlemişsindir. Artık yeterince yitirmişsindir. Tek bir adımın bile yalnızca sana ait olmadığını görecek kadar. Hiçbir iz bırakamadığını gecenin granit yüzünde. Yalnızca bir başka bedenin yollarında geleceğe doğru yürüyebildiğini. Artık yeterince cesaretin vardı. O ele ve bedene bir isim verecek kadar. Ancak o isim birleştirebilir. Ancak o isim birleştirebilir. Neyin boğuk sesiyle ölümsüz ezgisini. Ağaçların öyküsüyle insanlarınkini. Yeni açmış erguvanların kokusuyla uykusuz kuzey gölü. Bir körün gecesiyle seninkini. Floresan ışıkların altında toplaşmış kadınlarla erkeklerin bakışlarını birleştirdiği gibi. Bir çapayı çekip çıkarır yüreğinden. Sözcüklerle kahkahalarının parlak lacivert denizine salar seni. Kendi açtığı yarayı iyileştiren el, kilitlediği kapıyı açan anahtar gibi, labirentlerinde dolaştırdığı karanlıktan kurtarır seni. İnsanların gerçek gecesinden. Orada, ıslak kaldırımlarda, sonsuza dek yakalandığın ezginin asıl çağrısından. Kapının önünde elinde deniz kabuğu biçimli anahtarlığınla durursun. Gecenin soğuğunu içine çeker, yarım kalan bu soluğu tamamlamak için içeri girersin. Aynadaki yüzün karşılar seni. Beyaz gecelere benzeyen yüzün. Gitmiştir. Sonuna dek içilmemiş sigarasını külle bastırmış, ceketini, kaş kolunu, alelacele toplanmış çantasını kapıp gün doğumundan önce gitmiştir. Buruşturulmuş bir sigara paketi, oda sıcaklığında boş bir kadeh, kapıya bantlanmış veda cümleleri. Buz kütleleri gibi varlığını saran, bellekte çözülüp gerçek anlamlarına kavuşması yıllar alacak son ve boş cümleler. Tek bir ipliğin sökülmesiyle nasıl sökülürse bir kazak, öyle sökülür hayatın. Orada seni alıkoymayan sokakla evin arasında boş bir kabuk gibi büzüşüp kalırsın. Ve sanırsın ki yıllar sonra dönse bile seni tam burada, bıraktığı yerde, küçücük aşılmaz dönüşsüz eşikte bulacaktır. Yarıda kesilen bir cümlenin son virgülü gibi. Virgül. Thank you.
Harika, çok teşekkürler Aslı.
Ben teşekkür ederim.
Thank you. Ellen?
Yes. Exit. Stepping out, the first gust of northern wind fills you with nostalgia for the high seas. You crush your half-smoked cigarette in the ashtray. You empty glasses, throw into the trash the old leftovers piling up. You quickly pack up your memories, the white and the colored ones, those that were lived and those that could not be. To a very ancient twilight, you add the red from a coral necklace you embellish lace with black night. You empty your pockets, throw out the surplus, as one would pour back into the sea, fishing nets laden with agonizing fish. In a split second, you give up what made you who you are, those objects circumscribing your solitude. Finally, with a brave look, as if setting out to war, you take leave of everything, your face in the mirror. You don't know where to go. You leave, that's all. You take a deep breath, you exit through the enormous and invisible main door, and the world seems to exit with you. Nothing calls to you, neither voice nor silence. You turn around and throw another glance at this misfortune you are leaving behind, like a baby sleeping on a warm bed. Your eye glides a long time from one beginning to the next, and it is as if never seemed to return to you. In order to succeed in taking a step forward, you must not learn too much, nor forget too much, to not accumulate unduly, nor lose too much either. From your mother, you learned at age 3 or 4 at most to tie your shoelaces, for instance, to walk, to be patient, to be a woman, to fade into the background, and like cats preparing to die, to leave without a trace behind you. With as much patience as trees need in order for a single of their branches to blossom, accumulating the days, the raindrops, the buds exploding in silence, you accumulated the years, the experiences, the goodbyes, in order to step into the night unnoticed. But nothing calls to you, nothing stops you either. You open yourself to the fateful paths of night, to its obscure reddish glow. Out of a long well, you awake to darkness, to this fate, accession to which you put off for so long. The horizon in which your eye plunges is imaginary, and the wind blowing in from the sea is so violent that it dries your tears. Loudly it slams shut all the doors of the past behind you. You walk alone, as brief and vivid as the light of a shooting star. Accelerating with each step, you scatter your old skins to the four winds, old images, scab-encrusted wounds, final and empty sentences, and sending exhortations to your heart to hang on, to move forward in this hostile, circular, squared world that is the human sphere. Hang on as your heels resonate on the sidewalk and your shadow trails you very long and silent, the hardness of the sidewalk tearing into your knees, pavement caught between man and earth, between earth and night. You stop there, near the rise, you breathe. Under the Judas trees, under the sleepless northern sky, as if frozen before the world map you know by heart, red traces of frontiers, multicolored countries, oceans of a blue in which no sea has ever been arrayed. Vibrating with the breath of night, the world retrieves its true form. At last it is given back to you in its color of freedom and languidness combined. Perfectly foreign, perfectly wonderful, superb. Humid night, crystal clear, sparkling, intoxicating. It fills your eyes, those eyes you emptied as you would an ashtray, with scintillating darkness, dangerous sparkles that resemble the yearning to die. From now on, you want your footsteps to belong to you, to confide secrets to you, to lead you to adventures, to reveal miracles to you. For once, for one and only time, that what has fled, has always fled, await you. That darkness take you by the hand. You want to melt into the night, challenge the pavement, the stone, and attempting to open what is left of your wings, like a fly freeing itself from a spider's web, to pace up and down the valleys of light, even if it means falling at times. And you walk in these streets that resemble long corridors leading to empty rooms. You walk among bodies moving in the half-light, cries from indistinct sources, foreign shadows. You walk beneath the city lights like daggers revealing the darkness in which they plunge their shafts. On the pavement, all the human stories turn into lies. From their rebounds and ricochets, you walk aimlessly with no thoughts, no limits, with no yesterday or tomorrow. Your solitude is like a garment that suits you wonderfully. You move forward close to the walls, garbage cans, sidewalks, one eye sometimes on the men, sometimes on the emptiness separating them. And sometimes you talk, and sometimes you are silent. Your eyes have become accustomed to the darkness, and they pull a leaf out of a pile of mud. They embrace a kitten, caress a back hunched in fear, lift the downward cast of a young girl's head so that her gaze can encounter another or else look out toward the horizon. A night watchman has apparently locked all the doors, one after the other, extinguished all the lights. But the doors are powerless against you, you who have traveled so long under the closed eyelids of the world. You have freed yourself from them. And life, which until then you had been satisfied, accumulating by lending an ear, here you are looking at it squarely as it spreads and waits. But you are ignorant of the words by which to call it. You are filled with a hope that is not of the future, with a hope composed of anger, darkness, of a desire to rebel, and of nothingness. With its confident gait, your solitude is a challenge to a crowd of men. They know where they come from and where they are going. They walk side by side without touching one another, follow the same itineraries, stop in the same places, mark distances everywhere and with the same means, and slowly vanish into the same place, into the night they possess at a good price. You walk alongside shop windows, mix with those who, sheltered under their crude light, are caught in the orb of each other, of each of these lamps they have invented in order to escape from this bottomless well of the invisible. The men speak like victors, as if they had won the most complex of wars in their world. Their finger on the trigger night and day like blind huntsmen, and the women cling to their handbags, to their change, to their men, to everything that protects them from the gloomy darkness of the streets. You revel over these bits of words that full-mouthed spit into your ears, the way seagulls feed on city garbage. Laughter breaks out behind you, rockets towards you, zigzagging under the neon lights, despairing they may not consider you worthy of them. You leave, erasing yourself, invisible. You are no longer anything but a glance. And you turn back. Why will you never know, just as you never knew why you had stepped out? No voice called you, nor any silence. Nothing stopped you either. Perhaps you saw the night for what it was, as if under a magnifying glass, full of blisters, wounds, pustules. This night does not belong to you. It never did. Perhaps it is the fear of getting lost in the darkness that now liberates you from your own freedom, or else the fear of remaining congealed of it, of becoming as black as the eyes of the night. Or yet again, this strange desire suddenly appeared like a flower blooming on the water's surface. You would like to stay here in the streets, slumped on the wet pavement, next to two old men side by side. They do not resemble one another, no more than the night resembles the day. And yet you sense the two are brothers. One is disheveled, sturdy, with hard eyes, his face completely covered by a beard, except for his eyes, shining in the shadow like two balls of fire. Next to his only leg, completely stretched out on the sidewalk, he has unashamedly placed a pair of crutches, as if proudly. The other punier has white hair and is freshly shaven and dressed with care. His face is motionless as that of a saint, is tilted forward over a wooden flute on which he plays without taking his eyes off it. The tune he plays is monotonous, a pure, harsh, wild melody, but terribly human, also strangely devoid of anger. You stay there immobile and frozen in the biting cold of the night, absorbed by the dark and airy voice of the flute, its huge cry of solitude. You seem to have lost all the streets, all the roads, the towns, the seas. You seem to have already lost so much. During the short life that is yours, even count of what you have lost, of what you own. You bend down to put what is left of your money in the cardboard cup on the sidewalk. As soon as you do, the lame beggar with unexpected enthusiasm thanks you from the bottom of his heart. The other one continues to play. He tilts his head above the flute, and you guess that he is blind. So it is maybe this unfinished air constantly repeated, transmitted from his mouth to the mouth from the depths of the ages, that will teach you the meaning of the night. The sudden nostalgia you experience is brutal, violent, like a stomach cramp, like a cry in the flesh, and instantly it drowns all the rest. You walk faster, head back, soundlessly, as if gliding on the tip of your feet. You miss the hand that would caress your hair, moistened by the night. You regret the mouth that would blow on it, the breath that would warm you, bring you back to life, bring you back to yourself. You miss a look that would raise your own to open a horizon for it. A single look to weave a horizon out of all the roads traveled. You have sufficiently contemplated the shadow, enough to know that beyond the dreamed horizon, there is nothing but the void. Perhaps you are tired, that is all. Perhaps you are cold. You want to empty these pockets, permeated with the smell of the city. You want to lie down in an armchair, used to the shape of your body. You want to drink tea in small sips. And yet, nothing spectacular, nothing frightening in your journey, not a single miracle, not a single crime. Yet you want to tell about this night from which you are slowly pulling yourself away. And in telling about it, feel that you exist. That out of your pockets, there should emerge a muddy leaf, a kitten, bringing together these noises, the visions, the moments collected on the pavement, and turning into memories, tales, a life story. You have now lost yourself enough to know that your steps, even a single one of them, do not belong to you, that they will never leave the slightest trace of the night's granite face, that all you can do is follow into the future, the steps of another body. You now have the courage to name his hand and this body, to give them a name, the only name capable of uniting the dark voice of the flute with its immortal complaint, the story of trees with that of men, the perfume of the blooming Judas trees, with the sleepless northern sky, a blind man's night with your own, just as the men and women assemble under the neon lights, united through a look. An anchor has lifted from your heart. Words launch you onto the sea, the scintillating blue sea of laughter. A hand heals the wound you inflicted upon yourself, and like a key, opening all of the doors, frees you from the dark labyrinth in which you roamed, saves you from the real night of men over there on the wet sidewalks, tears you away from the cry of this complaint by which you are forever grabbed. You are in front of the door, your shell-shaped king ring in your hand. You breathe into the cold night air, and before finishing this half-accomplished breath, you enter. Your face awaits you in the mirror, a face that resembles white nights. She has left, She crushed her half-smoked cigarette in the ashtray. She quickly gathered together her shawl, her wallet, closed her handbag, and long before the sunrise, she left. A crushed pack of cigarettes, an empty glass in the warm room, a word of goodbye taped to the door. A few empty and final sentences that compress your being as a block of ice, that will require years before erased from memory, they will finally reveal their true meaning. All it takes is one thread of wool for the entire sweater to unravel. And so does your life unravel itself. You stand there wrinkled and shriveled up like the skin of an emptied fruit. In the interval between your home and the street that cannot stop you, and you will tell yourself that if someone were to come back here someday, even many years from now, he would find you there, exactly where you were left, on this tiny threshold, uncrossable and with no return, like a comma in the middle of an incomplete sentence. Beautiful story.
Thank you.
So beautiful, so beautiful. Also translation, thank you.
Thank you, Ellen, and thank you, Aslı.
Thank you very much for your reading.
Thank you.
Thank you for the story.
Also beautiful reading, thank you.
Thank you.
Pardon, Urka? Okay, our next reader is Aylin Antmen. She's a Turkish poet, writer, essayist, and editor. She attended Anadolu University in the Department of Philosophy and Sociology. She has published poetry and prose and has been published in numerous reviews. Since June 2022, she has been regularly publishing articles on poetry in Varshlik Literary Magazine. Her poems have been translated in English, Zaza, Urdu, Kurdish, Persian, and French. She is the author of 4 books of poetry published in 2011, 2016, 2018, and 2021. Other collections as a participant include Turkish Poetry Today, Red Hand Books, Mantis Journal, Stanford University Press, the Enchanting Versus Literary Review, and the Jamie Review. And I give you Aylin.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you, Dr. Gloria. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here together. I say welcome, everyone. First, I will read a poem from my second book. The rose is in the body. The rose in the body. Gül bedendedir. Melekler secde ettiğinde güllere, bir dalganınkiyle aynı güçte gül bedendedir. Koparıp alır yıldızları karanlık kuluçkalardan daha derine, ay ışığı yataklarına dek onu duyuran sesler, acıda kızıl ve inançlı gecelerdir. Her şey ve her şeyin içinde, hiçbir yerde ve hiçbir şey, duyulmayan çarpmasıdır tek başına, koca bir okyanus derinliğinde kalbin. Binlerce kez yanarak taşır köklü ateşleri, her şeyden çok özlediğin, susadığın göklerin altında. Her ne duymaksa istediğin çılgınca, ilk günde süren açlığın her neyle doymak istediyse oradadır. Meleklerin secde ettiği yerde, gül bedendedir. Thank you very much.
The rose in the body. Excuse me, the rose is in the body. And these poems are translated by Patrick Neil Doherty. When the angels bow down before the roses, with a force equal to that of a wave, the rose is in the body, pulling the stars out of darkness, down into the deeps, the beds of moonlight, the voices that announce her, the crimson within pain and faith-filled nights, and everything, within no place, in nothing, your heart an unheard and solitary collision, down in the depths of the ocean, but burning 1,000 times, carries the rooted fires under the skies where you desired everything, where you thirst. Whatever it is you crave to hear, or the hunger dragging on from that first day crave to eat is there, where the angels bow down and the roses is in the body. Aylin, the next poem.
Yeah, okay. Uzayın gövdesi. Özlüğünü yıldırılmış sevinçlerden alıp getiren, varlığın kumu savrulmadan önce eşikte kal ve anlat bana, ufukta mı baharların ayini? Şakaklarımda ağırlaşan kızıl taç anlatır, büyük ve hasıl bahçelerin sessizliğini. İlk arzunun verimli yatağında işittim onu. Hiçbir şeyde yalnızlık yoktu. Yalnızca bir ayna kırığı taşıyarak gözde, garip bir töreni uyandırdık ömrümüze. İçeride ve dışarıda ayrılık yoktu. Neydi bir aradalığın dilindeki sözcük? Uzağın gövdesini çevreleyen bu yangın, kanlı terler akıtırken beyaz bir gül gibi onda içimi tanıyan suyu aradım. Sayıklayarak unuttum günleri. Bir kan mevsimiydi zaman, tasasız bıraktım bu uğrak evi.
The body of distance. Before the sand of being that draws its essence from dismayed joys scatters, pause by the threshold and tell me, are the ceremonies of spring still there on the horizon? The red crown growing heavy on my temples tells of the great, the unfolding garden's silence. That first I heard in desire's fertile bed, for loneliness dwells in no single thing, but merely by carrying a shard of mirror in the eye, we awoke a strange ceremony onto our lives. There is no separation within or without, but what was the word on the tongue of togetherness, the fire surrounding the body of distance, like a white rose as it sweats steams of blood. There I searched for the water that knows my heart, hiding all the days I forgot. Time but a season of blood. Breezily I abandoned this much frequented house.
Tevellüt. Uzun sözlerin bahçesindeyim. Ey dünya, ben senin bütün hallerinim. Tevellüdümle edindiğim bütün zarafeti ben, yüreğimin küçük penceresinde gün ışığıyla giyinirim. İyinin tüm bildiğidir o tatlı soğuk. Kuşlar hazırken, gök hazırken, yeryüzü bütün halleriyle bekliyorken sonsuzluk. Uzun sözlerin bahçesindeyim. Ey dünya, ben senin bütün hallerin.
Earth. In the garden of long utterances, O world, I am every facet of you. I don all the grace my birth has bestowed to the small window of my heart by the light of the sun. This sweet cold is all that the good knows, while the birds are ready, while the sky is ready, with every facet of the earth eternity waits. In the garden of long utterances, O world, I am every facet of you.
Uzak denizlerin incisi. Çağırırım sesini yitirdiğim koruda, yelesini eski bir yaradan taşıran beyaz kısrakları. Kimse bilmesin ne umduğumu seni duyurduğun Tanrı'da. Belki gezdiririm onu kapkara bir yılan gibi damarımda. İrfanın kör kayalığından indim dilin sütüne. Sonunda uzak denizlerin incisiyim ben. Yıldızlara kendini inandırmaktan, Tanrısını unutmuş bu dünyanın yüreği olmaktan yorgunum. Artık ne bu düzen, ne vaat edilmiş olan merhamet bulantıya sürüklüyor beni.
Pearl of the distant seas. I summon in the woods where I lost your voice, white mares who spill out of an old wound their manes. Let no one know what I hoped of, the God to whom I revealed your name, for I paraded around like a pitch black serpent in my veins. Down learning's blind rocks, I descended into tongue's milk, at last a pearl of the distant seas, tired of having the stars believe in me, tired of being the heart of this world that has forgotten its God. No more will this order or this place pledged mercy drag me into nausea.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aylin. And before we move on to Urkut, Ellen, would you read the second story, please, by Aslı?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
A tale for Galata. Where are they then? Does a city this ancient, this city to which are attached almost as many names as to God, does it not have ghosts? Chaotic, twisting, tricky streets, narrow, steep paths, sheer alleys, ramparts no longer visible in that once circled it 9 times like sticks. Galata, this neighborhood, whose roots plunge to the dizzyingly abrupt depths of the hill, ruins, covered galleries, secret passages, stones, stubborn, tenacious, riddled with holes, dismal stones in the crevices of which the sea appears below, and all the way to the horizon. Between these stones, remains of brackish waters, no longer sending back reflections to the passerby misplacing a foot in them. And wandering there between dust and obscurity, between the shadows and the decay, a living thing, extremely alive. Perhaps that here in this place, where the hours always ring in the past, in this place where the tower that twinkles like a forsaken star climbs, twisting on itself, ascending the blue darkness of the sky, there where the silence of stones weds that heaven, where the memory of empty gaps means the vague uncertainty of the future. Perhaps that which we take for silence is time's pulse. Perhaps that here in this place where the hours always ring in the past, in this place where the tower twinkles like a forsaken star. Whoa, sorry, reading the same thing over. I'll go on. Here in the street where I once lived, a halt to take shelter, to catch my breath, my refuge, a prison, the contours of which were quickly erased, a bold fig tree, puny and devoid of leaves, standing against the stream of passing centuries. Galata was always far, always other, always on the other side, on the shore across the way, deserted and unloved. It was a colony surrounded by the waters, adoring its own gods, licking its own wounds. It was a place of exile and a refuge for immigrants, a ghetto speaking 1,000 languages, a port where spices and slaves arrived, where soldiers and merchants boarded for the Mediterranean. With each plague epidemic, each siege of the city, it was Constantinople's graveyard. And with each northern wind, its morbid miasma would stink up the old town, the old and massive stone eye, having lost its brother and always looking southward. The one-way mirror of the vanquished city, its prematurely raised tombstone, a wounded look that no longer contemplates the future, only the past, turned back toward a past that has sunk into abyss too deep for the net of words, in memory filled with the ruins of the sea. Now my eyes are the ones considering its secrets, its promises, its aged dreams, my defeats, the tales I believed were mine, its seasons, its days, its nights, in winter nights when I always catch cold, when the interwoven streets are covered with a thin coat of snow. Its foggy spring mornings, so motionless they appear to be forever frozen in place. These mornings that seem to be dissolved in the dawn dew and the melancholy of reality, and that by their monotony, their indeterminacy, pass off for the very image of life. On certain autumn nights, the sky is draped in a golden veil, so miraculous, a color so stupefying, that seeing it, it seems to me the time has come for me to die. Or else that it is announcing the birth of a new and singular obscurity. The rain hitting the pavement in which the moon is reflected, the soaked birds circling with cries in the pale and scintillating orb of the tower, the voices bouncing off here and there, familiar shadows hugging the walls, the resonating footsteps, the travelers, the dope heads, dealers, thieving kids, the knifed women, the pacing of nameless shadows, the forgotten ones, those who come back to life, those who sink into oblivion again. All the lives that have passed through there, extinguished, swallowed up, that go on moving in the depth of my heart and tear at it like cracks in an iceberg. Nebulous horizons promising a new disappearance every day. In those ports sunk under the water, perhaps, on the pavement, in the sea, eyes turned toward their lost past, they listen to the farewell siren of a ship weighing anchor and the sailors singing love songs in 1,000 languages. They hear the call at dawn by a fine purgatory morning, a morning like all the others, where the call of the sea is indistinguishable from the earth, where the history of the stones becomes that of man. Time is a master that seems to have settled here after a long journey, and it has dug doors into the rock only the dead know how to open. Each building here has its own cellar. Each cellar has its own well, and the courtyards where no one has set foot in years. It sometimes happens that a door opens and a tired shadow appears at a window before disappearing almost immediately, or that from the depths, from the very heart of stone, a melody seems to rise. Familiar yet unfinished, calling up other echoes. Ruined buildings, empty buildings, abandoned buildings, buildings in which only night lives on. Stone buildings that have survived their ancient master's departure, the earthquakes, the fires. Doors covered in rust, a well that dried out 10 years earlier, on roofs invaded by pigeons, a cat treads carefully on the broken tiles between the buildings, on broken tiles, and the cities of seagulls to open and close the days. Clothes hanging from stretched out between buildings, impalpable and peaceful ghosts. The spirit of bygone ages spreads like a fog into each gap, niche, or opening, and catching its breath there revives, rushes into the soil, the bones, climbs the spinal column. You are the next in crossing these streets where processions followed caskets. You move forward following circles that intertwine infinitely in the limbo of the frightening, poisonous symbols in the desolate meanderings of your soul. Into your own intimate disappearance, commonplace and magnificent, a voice calls you and then another. They take hold of you, scatter you, hurtle down a hill like a stone toward the sea, and the past drags you with it. With each of your steps, the ancient myths resurface, revived by broken dreams along the forgotten trails. These paths, these streets, these treeless sidewalks are the arteries of life, the color of heart with innumerable coagulated destinies. Each stain on the stone is a boundless look, a beginning refusing to know its own end. You walk entire nights under dark lights, becoming constricted like a bottleneck. Galata enters into an even darker slumber, and gently skilled frozen fingers shut its only eye, so as to conceal from it the desolation of its streets, and to rouse it fervishly until morning with dreams of the open sea. You walk in the night, beaten by the western wind, in an afternoon the color of agate. In the moonlight under that of stars, and in that of day, metamorphosizing Galata into what it truly is, a disreputable neighborhood. The freer and lighter your steps become, the heavier is the weight of all the curses, all the elegies, all the farewells. You straighten up and catch your breath before the long walk. On the way, you are surprised to recognize your traces, your images. What brought you together, you have no idea. And yet from now on, nothing will ever separate you. You walk into these streets that used to be yours. You cross ramparts at the foot of corpses piled up with each epidemic. You enter courtyards teeming with stealthy, scrawny cats. You breathe in the cavities left by the statues of saints that were stolen. This is where stands the native home of a poet whose head was cut off during the French Revolution. Exactly in this spot where a clockmaker lived in the 18th century, a transvestite, and threw himself out a closed window, holding firecrackers in his hand. This street, the street where once every century there appears a ghost of a young woman who was murdered. The Genosia's tower, hewn out of brute solitude that the waves assailed once 1,000 years ago. You climb in this tower that used to serve as a prison for galley slaves, and you turn and rise with it. And in the tower where climb all those who would like to fly to the other shore called Asia, and those who have opted for the ultimate shore, you look down in silence. You gaze at the horizon, the rooftops, the streets, devoid of every trace of you or your journey. The day rises. You think about all the destinies that interweave here, and forgetting your own fate, alone and standing very straight, you accept all the lies of life and death. Would you come back if you truly listen to yourself? But in order to speak about which unknown sky, to finish which story, to which infinity would you settle a final period? There in the eyes of partially hollowed out by time, an image imprints itself, strange and remote. In these eyes, empty of reflections, empty and hollow, a dream woven out of mud and pure gold. Galata waits, curled up in its shell, broken 1,000 times. It looks afar, afar only in distance, foggy, blurred, and compelling. But all it sees there is its own past. Its forgetful eye reviews the lives and deaths, the legends and defeats, the beginnings and endings. It no longer wishes to believe in anything other than its own infinite dream. This old city looking down on its shallow waters, searching in them for the reflection of its face, chiseled by centuries, identical with a drop of agate suspended at the edge of an eye, and which refuses to roll down. It will not reach the sea, the infinite blueness of the sea. You are there in this place where you realize that coming back is not only a source of regrets, of lost illusions. Between the stone and the sea, the light and the mud, the beginnings and the endings, in the port where the dead sing songs of farewell for you, in the hope that they will be their ultimate call. In this place where you lend an ear to all voices in order to hear your own, where in order to be reborn, you pick up all the cries of the world.
Thank you, Ellen. And it was beautiful for you to read that of Asli's work.
Beautiful.
And our next reader is Erkut Tokman. He's a Turkish poet, actor, visual and performance artist, editor and translator. He is the founder of the open poetry movement based on performance poetry. He is a member of the Turkish and Italian pen, working in the Writers in Prison Committee. He was editor for numerous journals and currently writes as a columnist for Artful Living in Terz Dig, where he publishes his interviews, articles, new poems, visual and experimental artworks. He translates from Italian, English, Romanian, and French. He has been published in World Literature Today, The Poetry Review, Pen Review in Italy, among others. He was awarded the Salvador Quasimodo Giaci Poetry Award in Italy, and in 2019, the Italian Ministry of Cultural International Translation Award, and others. And I give you Erkut.
Thank you, Gloria. Okay. I'd like to wait just a minute. I'm sorry. Bir sürrealistin günlüğünden. Bazen küçük uçurumlara düşüyorum, gel. Aradığım bir renk yok teninde. Çünkü bir ırk değilsin, bir dil, bir millet değilsin sen. Bazen küçük uçurumlara düşüyorum, gel. Boşluğun odasına asılı kalbim. Penceresi yok içimdeki hacmin. Kapısı, duvarları yok. Şimdi Gandhi kadar özgürüm. Ülkeden ülkeye dolaşıyorum. İtalya'da Mussolini'yi ziyaret ediyorum. Bir diktatörün soğuk kalbinde zaman. Bugün de yaşayan. Kalbim çıplak. Barış için dünya uzak. Barış için dünya hala çok uzak. Almanya'da Nazilerden kaçıyor. Einstein Amerika'da. İzafiyet teorisini yazıyorum. Dünya değişebilir. Işığın hızı değişebilir. Bir uçuruma düşersem sana ulaşmak için zamanım az olur. Salvador'da Lire, İspanya'da çay içiyorum. Bütün bir sanat tarihini değiştirecek fikirlerim var. Bütün formları yeniden yıkıp yaratıyorum. Bana deli diyorlar senin gibi. Larınız diyorum. Yüksekliğiniz kadar alçalıyor. Yeni bir sürrealistim elbette. Engellerinizi yıkmaya yeminli o coşkun nehir. Martin Luther King'le Amerika'dayım. We shall overcome. Benim de bir düşüm var. Barış kadar uzak. Jill Scott Heron, Nina Simon. Sokakların şiirini dinliyorum. Zenci olduğum için gururlu. James Brown. We shall overcome. Boşluğun odasında sevginin hacmi yok. Kalbine dokunsam her şey büyüyecek. Oysa ölüyorum yavaş yavaş bak. Yine de dünya güzel. Aşk güzel. Bazen küçük uçurumlara düşüyorum. Gel. Şimdi Gandhi kadar çıplağım. Gel. Üşümüyorum. Bilgi büyük, sonsuz, yetişemiyorum. İnsanlık uçuruma düşmüş bir yalan. İnsanlık dünyadaki kadar uzak. Gel yanıma uzan. Çünkü yavaş yavaş ölüyorum. Belki seninle yeni bir dünya keşfederiz. Belki bunlara yeni bir felsefe deriz. Gel belki yarın yeni bir gezegene gideriz. Gidersek beni orada bırak. İnsanım. Küçük uçurumlara düşüyorum. Bak. Dünyanın kapısı yok ki. Neresinden gireyim? Evrenin katı çıktığım kadar. Her şey kendi yüksekliğince güzel. Bazen küçük uçurumlara düşüyorum. Gel.
From a surrealist diary. From time to time, I tumble down little abysses. Come to rescue me. No color, I look for you. I look for on your skin because you're not a race, not a language, nor a nation. I tumble down little abysses from time to time. Come. My heart hangs upon the room of emptiness. The volume inside me has no windows, neither walls nor a door. Now I'm as free as Gandhi. I make my way from one country to another. In Italy, I visit Mussolini. In the cold heart of a dictator, frozen time. Even today, still alive, my heart is naked. For peace, world is afar. For peace, world is still too far. In Germany, I flee from the Nazis. Einstein is in the United States. I reformulate the theory of relativity. The world can change. The speed of light can change. If I tumble down an abyss to grasp you, so I gain a little more time. I'm having tea with Salvador Dali in Spain. I have plenty of ideas to change the whole art history. I ruin and reconstruct all art forms. Same as you, they call me crazy. Your walls, I call them. If they're lowering as high as your loftiness, then of course I'm a new surrealist, sworn to demolish your barriers, the bursting river on banks. With Martin Luther King, I'm in the US. We shall overcome. I too have a dream as remote as peace. I listen to the poetry of the streets, Gil, Scott Heron, Nina Simone. I'm proud of being Black. Hi, James Brown, we shall overcome. Inside the room of emptiness, love has no volume, as if all will grow in number where I touch on your heart. Yet slowly I'm dying. Behold a heart, but still the world is beautiful. Love is beautiful. Please do come. Sometimes down to little abysses I tumble. Now I'm as naked as Gandhi. Come, I'm not frozen. I can't keep up with the knowledge because it's infinite, vast. Humanity is a lie tumbled down an abyss. Humanity as it is far removed from the earth. So do come, lie down on next to me because I'm dying slowly. Perhaps you and I will discover another world. We may call it a new philosophy. Tomorrow, we may go to a new planet. Come, if we reach so, leave me there. I'm a human. Look, I tumble down little abysses from time to time. The world never had a doorway, so where through could I enter into it? The layers of universe as long as I can rise. Everything is as beautiful as it is high in consciousness. Come, from time to time, I tumble down little abysses.
Eski konuk. Sonsuz boşluklara yayılan, sessizliğin gelini yoğuran, senle benim aramda evreni dolduran karanlık madde. Bir ütopya toz bulutunda, bir düş, sancılı ruhumuzda gebe, çağların zaman aralıklarında. Bir yaydan çıkan okla kalbimize saplanmış, varoluş denklemine dayalı eksik hipotez, önlenemez değişim ve devrim. Bir serzenişi var oysa yolculuğunda, hayalini kurduğumuz dünyaların yokluğunda. Sonunda hep yeniden içeri davet ettiğim insanlığın kapısına dayanmış en eski konuk. Yalnız. Aklının coğrafyasında kayıp bir rüzgar şimdi. Unutuşun ateşiyle kavrulan bir anı. Hayat dediğin ruh yangını. Bir türlü kaçıp kurtulamadın.
An old guest, embodying the mute language, dark matter merging the universe, diffusing into infinite space between you and me. An utopia hidden therein, dust cloud, a dream got pregnant, aching within our souls, bounded by milestones of the ages. Since incomplete hypothesis based on an equation of existence, an arrow sprung from its bow targeted our hearts. Inescapable metaplasia of revolution, yet it has a grievance amongst the worlds that we imagine. And the end, once again, you have invited in, the one knocked at humanity's door. Is the oldest guest solitude? A lost wind on the geography of your mind, a memory scorched by the heat of forgetfulness called life, which you can't get away from, the flames of soul within. Thank you so much, Aslı, and thank you, Aylin. Your reading was so beautiful and your work, and I am so grateful to have you here. And Erkan, a big, huge thank you to him because he organized this for me. And also a big thank you to Ellen Devlin for reading the English of Aslı's work. And so I guess we'll have to end. I don't see him coming back. I am very sorry about that. And thank you everyone so much.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
inviting me, for reading my work. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Aylin.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Claudia.
Thank you, Ellen. Bye, everybody.